Most don't know this, but the type of vehicle that you drive in GTA Online says a lot about you as a player. Like for example, if you fly a Sparrow, you're probably a Kaio maxing grinder who is willing to give himself brain rot in exchange for lots of virtual cash. If you drive a Kanjali, you're still coping about the good old days of GTA before utter lobby domination, before flying threats like the Lazer turned you into an overpriced bread loaf on tracks. If you drive the RC Bandito, you're just a harmless troll, and if you like terrorizing public lobbies with the Harry Potter broomstick Mark II, you're just However, there are some vehicles in the game that no sane player should ever buy. Vehicles that are in fact hated by a vast majority of the GTA player base for one reason or another. Not because they're overpowered like the Mark II, but because they just suck, like the LSCM Cheetah Classic for example. And in today's video, I'm going to showcase 15 of those vehicles so you know what you should not waste your money on, and why. So here are 15 vehicles that no player should ever buy in GTA Online. First, the RM10 Bombushka, which is possibly the worst bomber in all of GTA Online, and it's a real shame too because this is one of my favorite planes in the entire game in terms of raw looks. However, the first time you set foot inside the cockpit and try to actually kill something with the Bombushka, you'll realize that something is very wrong. Because first off, it's slow. Really ungodly slow to the point where you can literally get overtaken by an HVY Menacer if the two of you are traveling in a straight line. Then the Bombushka also has this issue where it's so massive and unwieldy that unless you kill the engines, you can't make it turn in a reasonable amount of time. You need 5 football fields to pull a barrel roll, and it has a turning radius the size of Utah. Plus, the armor isn't all that impressive either. Sure, it can tank 4 RPGs, but why not get an Avenger at that point? Not only does it cost less, but it has actual armor that allows it to tank up to 25 homing missiles without dying. Meanwhile, the Bombushka will go down to just 4. And you technically can take off from short runways and use those turret-mounted guns to defend yourself, but if firepower is what you're looking for here, once again, the Avenger has VTOL plus actually good turrets, or just get the Titan 250D if you want to cosplay as a flying fortress. Either way, avoid the overpriced abomination that is the Bombushka. And speaking of overpriced, here's another bomber that you must avoid at all costs, the RO86 Alkonost, aka the plane that you only use when you're trying to be a hipster in Cayo Perico, because we all know that the Longfin and the Kasaka are going to be much better approach vehicles for that heist, yet the Alkonost does have some benefits in Cayo, like for example, it's the only approach vehicle that can be used like a Fortnite battle bus, allowing you to drop on any part of the island with your friends, as long as it isn't directly above the main compound. Plus, the Alkonost drop is full stealth mode, so nobody will see you parachuting in during your Halo jump, and if you do it during the nighttime, it feels even cooler. But while the Alkonost has some benefits in Cayo, in the world of free roam GTA, if you spend $4.3 million on this giant metal seagull, you are going to be very disappointed here. Okay, sure, it is faster than the Bombushka, big deal, so is a Toyota Prius, and while the Bombushka has JADO for short takeoffs, the Alkonost doesn't, so you're going to need a ginormous airfield if you actually want to take off and land without exploding into a fireball full of jet fuel and bombs. The bombing ability with this plane isn't anything special either. You can do much better with a Cuban 800 funny enough, and the thing is literally free with every hangar purchase. Plus, your pseudo stealth powers at high altitudes won't impress anyone because at that height, how the heck are you even going to see what you're targeting, let alone hit anything with your bombs? So yeah, stay away from the Alkonost. Sure, it looks cool, goes decently fast, but is extremely expensive and practically useless in pretty much every free roam lobby you find yourself in. Next at number 3, we've got one of the most heavily armored vehicles in the entire game, the Rune Zaba, made by the same folks who gave us one of the best vehicles in the game, the Kasaka missile submarine. But while the Kasaka has awesome cruise missiles and teleportation powers, the Zaba just looks like a McDonald's Happy Meal with wheels on the bottom. And you might think that I'm being a little bit too harsh here because it can tank up to 14 homing missiles and 14 RPGs, which is excellent by any metric, of course. In fact, it can tank more RPGs than even the Insurgent, but unfortunately, being a big goofy damage sponge is of no use to players in GTA Online these days. To be survivable, you need more than just raw armor. You need speed, offense, and countermeasures mixed in, and the Zaba basically has none of those. While it can float on the water, in practice, going amphibious with a Mark II on your tail just turns you into an even slower target. Off-road capability is decent on the Zaba, so you can approach your enemy from all sorts of weird angles, but unless you're chasing a snail, you won't actually catch up to anyone on the map because your top speed is just 62 miles an hour. Plus, it weighs as much as a hot fart balloon, so anytime you get hit by a homing missile, your little lunchbox on wheels is going to spin around like a Beyblade, completely disorienting your vision and ruining your situational awareness while you play. And good luck driving over hills too because of the high center of gravity this vehicle has, which means one slip and you'll be tumbling down like a metallic roly-poly. If you're a fan of Mustangs, especially the classic models from the 67 model year, you probably think that the Vapid Ellie is a good purchase, but I'm here to tell you that you're wrong, because not only are the ASP and GTT far superior in terms of performance and customization, but they also have the Dominator badge and a more authentic look to them. The Ellie is heavily inspired by the Eleanor Mustang from Gone in 60 Seconds, the one with Nick Cage, but it kind of drops the ball in certain areas. Like for example, the entire front end, which is taken from a 1970 Mustang Grande rather than the Eleanor. Ironically, if you want the front face of the Eleanor Mustang, you're much better off with the Dominator GTT, which absolutely nails that part of the car. Performance is also pretty miserable with a top speed of just 105 miles an hour and lap times that are measured with a calendar rather than a stopwatch. Bottom line, don't buy the Ellie, get the GTT, the ASP, the FX, literally any other Mustang, and you'll probably be a lot happier here. And for all the trolls out there who think that setting someone on fire with an RC tank is the epitome of humor, well, first off, you're right. It is really fun to set folks on fire, in GTA Online of course, but also, the RC tank is kinda, sorta, shit. It's slow, it has an awful jump, the cannon is extremely underpowered against player vehicles, and the only people you control with this thing are those who aren't accustomed to the powers of the compact EMP launcher. Because just a year ago, Rockstar massively nerfed all RC vehicles by making the EMP launcher a one-shot kill against them, and it also nerfed the recall cooldowns. So now, if your RC tank is blown up, you have to wait a full 5 minutes before you can call on the next one. Unlike the RC tank, my next vehicle is actually not crap at all. In fact, it's really good, and before the infamous rotary cannon nerf of 2023, it was the undisputed king of the lobby alongside the Hydra. I'm of course talking about the P996 Lazer, one of the many forgotten heroes of GTA 5 Online, which has kind of just been withering away in everyone's proverbial basement since the release of the Raiju, which does everything that the Lazer does for nearly the same amount of money, but it does it so much better. And it even does things the Lazer can't, like hovering in VTOL mode and going off the radar with stealth mode. In my opinion, the Lazer is still a decent aircraft, and for the average player who doesn't know how to abuse the Raiju's VTOL thrust, it is a better dogfighter. But the lack of a trade price is what kills it, because if you do the on-parade LSA mission from the Avenger terminal, you can buy the Raiju for just $5.1 million, so not only is it better than the Lazer, but it can also be cheaper. And if you have a hangar in Fort Zancudo, you can just get a Lazer for free, so why bother paying $6.5 million for it when you already know it's going to get blown up by a better aircraft in the next 5 minutes. And speaking of things that you can get for free, let's talk about the Brickade 6x6. Now, there are two versions of this. The Acid Lab version, which costs $1.4 million on Warstock, and the regular version, which you should never buy because it's completely useless and you can call one from your SecuraServe CEO menu anyway. Now, for the Acid Lab version of the Brickade, you could get it early without doing the first dose series of missions, but what's the point? You still need a freak shop to customize it and apply the upgrades, and you're wasting $1.4 million when the game gives you one for free. Plus, the Acid Lab's money per hour is drastically reduced unless you install the upgraded equipment, and that requires 10 Fooligan jobs from Dax. So I say, even if you don't like the Los Santos Drug Wars missions for some reason, just bite the bullet and run through them, then complete the 10 Fooligan jobs. It's a one-time thing, you get close to $1 million with the first time completion bonuses, and your Acid Lab turns into a super profitable solo-friendly business at the end of it all. For those of you who are looking for a solid Amani Tech vehicle because Mark II griefers are pummeling your booty hole in public lobbies, you might be tempted into buying a Patriot Milspec. After all, it's a Humvee. Everyone loves a Humvee. And it's cheaper than many of the sports class Amani Tech cars in the game, so it seems like good value, right? But you'd also be wrong, because the Milspec is easier to kill than most other Amani Tech vehicles, primarily due to the awful speed it has. Both top speed and acceleration are laughably bad, to be honest, which is understandable given that it's a Humvee, of course, but you also don't get bulletproof windows. They're just bullet resistant. And while the rear is bulletproof with the hardtop upgrade, it also prevents you from shooting out the back, and because this vehicle is lighter than it should be anytime you get hit by a homing missile, you flop around like a fish out of water. I'd much rather have an Anus Jubilee over the Patriot Milspec because not only is it much faster, but it doesn't cost a whole lot more with the trade price. The Dewbauchee Champion is another Amani Tech vehicle that you should not purchase nowadays, and even though I personally own one because I like Aston Martins, I must admit it's a disappointment as a supercar overall. If it was a sports car, the performance would probably be reasonable enough, but in the supercar category, it's vastly outclassed by basically everything. And then there's the price tag. Even with the launch price of $2.5 million, that was too much for a car of this caliber. But $3.7 million? That's just outright theft. Instead, I'd recommend saving up the cash, getting yourself a Buffalo STX, even an EVX, or of course the Ocelot Virtue, which can be yours for free if you do the last dose series of missions in the game. Next, we've got the Overflot Entity MT, which is another supercar with lackluster performance, only this one isn't even an Amani Tech vehicle. It's a plain old unarmored car with no standout features other than its looks, which I must admit are impressive if you like the Koenigsegg Jesko. It's basically a one-to-one ripoff, but for some reason Rockstar's developers forgot to copy over the batshit insane performance of the Jesko, because the Entity MT has the same engine resistance as the XXR thanks to that hard rev limit advanced handling flag, which causes it to get stuck on the rev limiter right before an upshift. And this massively slows you down in races, or even just general driving. And with HSW upgrades, the Entity MT loses out against cars still like the La Carousse and Devest 8, despite its theoretically good top speed, which never actually translates into real-world performance. So I suggest avoiding this car and getting yourself a Krieger instead. Not only is the Krieger faster than even an HSW Entity MT, but it's also cheaper overall, and it's available for last-gen consoles, unlike the HSW upgrade for the Entity MT. The X80 Proto is another overpriced piece of trash, and I think this was the first ever holy crap, what is Rockstar even thinking moment the GTA community ever encountered, because back when it launched in 2016, the price tag was an astronomical $2.7 million. These days, that is the standard fare for a supercar, but back then it was a massive FU to all the loyal GTA Online players, because the Proto's price tag certainly wasn't enough to justify its performance. Okay, sure, it's fast and it looks outrageous, but who wants a supercar with constantly shifting downforce modifiers where the direction you're headed on the map affects how much downforce you generate? Not only is that a stupid bug to have, but the Proto just isn't that fast in today's landscape as well, where you can buy a much better performing vehicle for the same price. So dare I say, ditch the Proto and get yourself a Grati Turismo Omaggio instead. It looks better, and it goes even faster, and it has better handling. And if you're the sort of guy out there who goes for EV supercars, I also suggest you stay away from the Tesaract, because at $2.8 million, it truthfully doesn't offer anything that you cannot get from a Virtue or a Cyclone 2. If it's rocket-like acceleration you're after, the Cyclone 2 does it better than the Tesaract. If race car-like handling is your thing, get the Pinot La Carousse. And if you want armor, nothing beats an Amanitech EVX. So ditch the Tesaract and save yourself the cash for either of those three vehicles. The Mule Custom is another money sink, but it's far more egregious than any of the vehicles I mentioned so far, because once you buy it, you can't get rid of it. And it's going to actively reduce your money-making potential because of how dog slow it is compared to the far superior Pounder Custom. So skip the Mule, just buy the Pounder for your nightclub, and anytime your nightclub actually has more crates than can be carried in a Speedo Custom, you'll just spawn the Pounder instead. No Mule needed. The Police Riot is another useless vehicle, and this one's a no-brainer because first off, you don't even have to spend $4.8 million on this Pegasus toy. You can just get one for free by hitting a 4-star wanted level. And while the free body armor is nice, the vehicle can't even tank a single explosion, so it looks a lot tougher than it actually is. Lastly, we've got the Weaponized Conada at nearly $3.4 million, which is a bit more nimble than the Buzzard, and it also goes slightly faster at 151 miles an hour, but it has worse machine guns and it costs nearly twice as much, making it an awful purchase overall. As a matter of fact, you can get a whole Kasaka submarine plus a Sparrow by spending $600,000 more than a base Conada. So if you want a good light attack helicopter, go for that combo instead, and I guarantee you, you're gonna be much happier as a player. But there you have it. Those are my top 15 most hated vehicles in GTA Online, ones that I think no player in their right mind should ever buy. Some of these absolutely suck, others are heavily outclassed by similar but cheaper vehicles in their category, and of course, we also have honorable mentions like the Luxor Deluxe and the Buckingham Deluxe, but you guys don't really need me to tell you that buying a $10 million gold-plated private jet with zero armor and defensive measures is a bad idea in the current era of GTA Online. Unless you just want to flex your cash, of course, in which case, go right ahead. It's your money to waste. Thank you so much for watching though. Don't forget to drop a like on this video if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Check out my Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, specifically twitch.tv/hazardoushdtv for more GTA Online money grinding live streams. And I'll see you guys in the next GTA 5 online video. Adios amigos.